Swazi refers to the nation, tribe, or ethnic group, or an individual. Eswatini to the language. Eswatini speakers are found in Swaziland, South Africa, and Mozambique. The Swati or Swazi, Swati, EmaSwati, singular Swati, are a Bantu ethnic group native to southern Africa, inhabiting Eswatini, a sovereign kingdom in southern Africa, and South Africa's Mpumalanga province. EmaSwati are part of the Nguni-language speaking peoples whose origins can be traced through archaeology to East Africa, where similar traditions, beliefs, and cultural practices are found. The Swati people and the Kingdom of Eswatini today are named after Mswati II, who became king in 1839 after the death of his father King Sobhuza. Eswatini was a region first occupied by the San people, and the current Swazis migrated from northeast Africa through to Mozambique and eventually settled in Eswatini in the 15th century. Their royal lineage can be traced to a chief named Dlamini I. This is still the royal clan name. About 3/4 of the clan groups are Nguni, the remainder are Sotho, Tsonga, others Northeast African and San descendants. These groups have intermarried freely. Swazi identity extends to all those with allegiance to the twin monarchs Ingwenyama the lion, the king, and Indlovukati the she-elephant, the queen mother. The dominant Swati language and culture are factors that unify Swatis as a nation. EmaSwati are native to southern Africa. The term Baka Ngwane, Ngwane's people, is still used as an alternative to EmaSwati, to refer to the Swati people. EmaSwati are people who are predominantly descended from Nguni language speakers. However, some of the Swati people originate from Sotho clans who were also inhabitants of Eswatini. Under the leadership of Dlamini III, who took over from the Masiko, and settlement took place in 1750, along the Pongola River where it cuts through the Lubombo Mountains. Later on, they moved into a region on the Pongola River, which was in close proximity to the Ndwandwe people. Dlamini Ii's successor was Ngwane III, who is considered the first king of modern Eswatini. He ruled from around 1745 until 1780 at the Shizalvini region of Eswatini. In 1815, Sobhuza I became the king of Eswatini and was responsible for the establishment of Swati power in central Eswatini. Here the Swati people continued the process of expansion by conquering numerous small Sotho and Nguni-speaking tribes to build up a large composite state today called Eswatini. Sobhuza I's rule occurred during the Mfecane. Under Sobhuza's leadership, the Nguni and Sotho peoples as well as remnant San groups were integrated into the Swati nation. It was during his rule that the present boundaries of Eswatini were fully under the rule of the Dlamini kings. In the late 1830s, initial contact occurred with the Boers, who were settling in the territory that would become the South African Republic. A substantial portion of Swati territory was ceded to the Transvaal Boers, who settled around the Lydenburg area in the 1840s. The territory of Eswatini, and their king, Mswati II, were recognized by both the Transvaal and Britain. It was during the rule of Mswati II that the Swati nation was unified. Thereafter, the label Swati eventually was applied to all the peoples who gave allegiance to the Ingwenyama. Later, under Mbanzeni, many commercial, land, and mining concessions were granted to British and Boer settlers. This move led to further loss of land to the South African Republic. The result was that a substantial Swati population ended up residing outside Eswatini in South Africa. The Pretoria Convention for the Settlement of the Transvaal in 1881 recognized the independence of Eswatini and defined its boundaries. The Ingwenyama was not a signatory, and the Swazi claim that their territory extends in all directions from the present state. Britain claimed authority over Eswatini in 1903, and independence was regained in 1968. Today, Swati people reside in both Eswatini and South Africa. People of Swati descent in South Africa are typically identifiable by speaking Iswati, or a dialect of that language. There are also many Swati migrants in South Africa and the United Kingdom. The number of EmaSwati in South Africa is slightly larger than that of EmaSwati in Eswatini, which is approximately 1.2 million people. In modern-day Eswatini, Swati people include all Eswatini citizens regardless of their ethnicity. The kings of Eswatini date back to some considerable time to when the royal line of Dlamini lived in the vicinity of Delagoa Bay. The Swazi people as a nation were originally formed by 17 clans known as Bimjabuko, true Swazi, who accompanied the Dlamini kings in the early days. The 17 founding clans were Dlamini, Ndlovukati, Hlaf, Kunin, Mabuza, Madvansila, Mamba, Matspila, Mdlili, Mosa, Ngwenya, Shangwi, Sukati, Tsabeds, Tifwela, Mbakane, and Swain. Other Swazi clans are the Imakan-Zambili clans, those found ahead, e.g. the Games, Fakuj, Gamfalila, and Magagula, meaning that they were on the land prior to Dlamini immigration and conquest. The Imafikmava, those who came behind, who joined the kingdom later. Swazi traditional marriage is called Umtsimba, it is usually on a weekend in the dry season, June to August. The bride and her relatives go to the groom's homestead on Friday evening. On Saturday morning, the bridal party sit by a nearby river and eat goat or cow meat offered by the groom's family. In the afternoon, they dance in the groom's homestead. On Sunday morning, the bride, with her female relatives, stabs the ground with a spear at the groom's cattle kraal. Later she is smeared with red ochre. The smearing is the high point of marriage, no woman can be smeared twice. The bride presents gifts to her husband and his relatives. Mpumalanga is one of the most well-known cultural events in Eswatini, held in August/September for young unmarried girls to pay homage to the Indlovukati. Inkwala is another Swazi cultural event held in December/January, depending on the phases of the moon. This ceremony, also known as the first fruits ceremony, marks the king's tasting of the new harvest. The traditional Swazi religion recognizes a supreme god/creator in its pure form while the ancestors are recognized. The Swazi religion is based on a creator known as Mvalinkanti, he who was there from the beginning. Most Swazis intertwine this belief with modern-day Christianity that was brought by the missionaries. Many continue to practice their traditional spiritual beliefs. Spiritual rituals are performed at the level of family associated with birth, death, and marriage. Swazi, Bantu-speaking people inhabiting the tree-studded grasslands of Swaziland, the neighboring Mpumalanga province of South Africa, and Mozambique. The Swazi, who are chiefly agriculturists and pastoralists, numbered about 1,810,000 in the late 20th century. The language of the Swazi, called Swati or Swazi, belongs to the Banya-Congo group of the Niger-Congo languages. With the Zulu and the Xhosa, the Swazi form the southern Nguni ethno-linguistic group. In Swazi culture, the highest traditional political, economic, and ritual powers are shared between a hereditary male ruler and his mother or a mother substitute who holds the official position of Queen Mother. Polygyny is the traditional ideal, each marriage involving the payment of a bride price. The king's wives and children are settled in royal villages, diplomatically dispersed throughout the territory. In Swaziland, many national officials are drawn from dominant clans, but a balance is maintained in central and local government between this aristocratic element and representatives of commoners. In South Africa, a system of regional authorities is subdivided into tribal authorities, each of which has its own chief. Cutting through local and kinship bonds is a system that classifies men by age groups, reorganized every 5 to 7 years, and that requires of them labor and other services. Among non-Christians, beliefs in magic and witchcraft are combined with a highly organized ancestral cult. The Swazi people are descendants of the Bantu who originated in the Banya Cross region in Cameroon. The Bantu migrations followed 3 key routes, the western, the central and the eastern routes. The Bantu Swazi traveled from eastern Africa through Kenya, Tanzania, and into present-day Mozambique under the leadership of the King Dlamini I, Matalatala, King Ngwenya. That is why they came to be known as the Dlamini and people of Ngwenya, Baka Ngwenya, in the 1750s. The king in the Swazi setting rules together with a queen mother who is supposed to be a biological mother to that king. State formation. The Swazi conquered the neighboring chiefdoms and kingdoms characterized by the Sotho and Nguni tribes, Imakan Zambili, such as the Magagula, Masiko, and Simlane etc. Diplomacy and the use of arranged marriages were used to create strategic alliances with neighboring states. The use of regiments in warfare was more pronounced in the period ranging from the 1820s to the 1840s, where the whole southern African region underwent radical state building fueled by the reign of King Shaka of the Zulu and the devastating effects of the Madlachul famine. Swazi monarchs. The Swazi were led by King Sobhuza I, Samitlilo, from 1815 to 1836. King Samitlilo saw a vision where he advised the Swazi nation to choose umkulu, book, rather than indilanga, money, in the encounter with the white men. This could partly explain why the University of Swaziland emblem is inscribed Umkulosi Sekolo Sessive, education is a national asset/foundation. King Mswati XI, who reigned from 1839 to 1865, is credited as the greatest fighting Swazi king, and extended the boundaries of the country to incorporate places such as present-day Johannesburg, Hammanskraal, Pretoria, the Kruger National Park, Mkhozi, Vred etc. King Ludvanga, who ruled for a very short period, was succeeded by King Ndvunganyi. King Banzeni ascended the throne during the most difficult periods, 1880 to 1889, in the history of the country. There was an influx of white settlers who came for different reasons such as missionary work, farming, mining, grazing rights. It was a clash of culture and traditions between the Boers/British and the Swazi that resulted in the loss of land belonging to the Swazi nation, through concessions grants overseen by Theophilus Offie Shepstone Jr. King Bantu, Ngwenyama, led Swaziland when the Transvaal Boer Republic was in control of the political affairs, 1890 to 1899. The Transvaal Boer Republic's administrative headquarters were located in Bremersdorp, present-day Manzini, and were burnt down during the Anglo-Boer War of 1899-1902. The shopping mall is situated in the area where King Bantu was once tried for ordering the execution of a suspected witch. King Bantu died in 1899, the same year that King Sobhuza XI was born. From 1899 to 1921 Swaziland was under the leadership of Queen Regent Labotsibini Gwamali. Gwamali was a strong-willed woman who braved strong criticism and sent the young Sobhuza to school in Lovedale College in South Africa. In 1907 Gwamali established the Lifa Fund, where all able-bodied Swazi people working within and outside the country contributed a portion of their wages to be used for purchasing back land expropriated through concession grants in 1880s. It is no wonder that one vocational institution, Gwamali Vocational Institute Matsafa, was named in honor of her contributions in shaping the history of the country. King Sobhuza XI was installed on December 20, 1921 as king and ruled up until he died in 1982, making him the longest reigning monarch. He led Swaziland during the colonial era and showed unwavering support for the British during the course of the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. Several projects created by the Commonwealth Development Corporation, CDC, included the establishment of the Maitlum sugar estates, which were meant to help the Swazi war veterans integrate into civilian lifestyles. When the war ended, negotiations with Britain for self-rule were initiated, and finally culminated in the granting of independence on September 6, 1968. King Sobhuza XI was crowned as king and Ingwenyama of an independent Swaziland through instruments handed over by George Thompson, who represented the British Queen, at a colourful ceremony on the day at the Samitlilo National Stadium. Independent Swaziland now had its own national flag, national coat of arms and national anthem. Swazi traditional ceremonies. Inkwala ceremony is normally celebrated in December to early January depending on the lunar cycles. It is a ceremony that marks the king's opening of the Feast of the Fresh Fruits of the Year. It also symbolizes the king as a unifying factor among the Swazi nation and a symbol of power and authority. All people in Swaziland gather at the Royal Cattle Byre at Lujajini, where song and dance is rendered as part of the celebrations of the new year. The Inkwala dates back to early 1800s. Mpumalanga, reed dance, is usually celebrated annually around August or early September by all young maidens in celebration of virginity and sanctity of girlhood. The young girls, Imbali, are commissioned to cut the reeds in selected areas, with the older ones traveling a longer distance compared to the younger regiments. Traditional songs and dance are the order of the day, with both the king and the queen mother gracing the occasion. Mpumalanga dates back to pre-colonial era. Lasiquane, sacred shrub, is reserved for young boys, tingaja, who are not married. This traditional custom dates back to the pre-colonial era. These young boys are commissioned by the king to cut lasiquane annually, which is then used to fence around the traditional structures within the royal residence. This ceremony is normally attended by multitudes of young boys from all parts of the country. Thank you for watching this video.